Again with the latest Mustang and automotive news. Today I wanted to go over a topic that I think is going to be useful for a lot of people as the 2018 Mustang is just coming out. A lot of guys have got the 2015 to 2017 Mustangs and they're wondering if they should upgrade to the 2018 or if they should keep their 15 through 17. And something I've been thinking about since I have a 2015 is how can I make it compete with the 2018? Like, how could I, instead of upgrading and losing the 10,000 in depreciation and then spending another 10,000 on the depreciation on the 2018, so that's like 20 grand. How can I take just a fraction of that money and make it somewhat competitive with the 2018? Now, it's never going to be completely competitive because the new 2018 has more torque based on probably allowing it to run higher compression, more timing because of the better fuel injection system, dual injection and all this stuff. So, but what we can do is increase the 2015 to 17 to make it a little bit better. And the guys over at Moto IQ have done a full, intensive, data-focused, kind of almost scientific approach. And I've got a science background, and this is like perfect. This is like how you do a test if you're going to do one. So a lot of people just use peak numbers and they use dynos on different days and with different weather, and they try to do all this stuff very consistent with as little variables as possible. Another thing I wanted to say is just thanks so much, guys, for all the subscriptions and all the comments. I really appreciate that, and just keep them coming, and I'll just keep trying to have some fun with this and keep you updated with the latest. So let's dive in. Moto IQ is the website that I'm on. I was actually on the Mustang 6G when I read this, and what they did is they took a 2015 Mustang and they wanted to test the Ford Performance power packages. And if you don't know about those, Ford Performance has offered Power Pack 1, 2, and 3, and they all claim to increase your power different levels. And basically you can actually get a warranty if you have Ford install them. So you can take your factory Mustang and have your dealer, 50 state legal power pack basically. And they'll install this, and it increases horsepower and torque, increases drivability, and we'll go over some of that stuff in the video. But I'm going to try to summarize this and make it kind of short and simple, short and sweet, so to speak. So the car, one thing I wanted to point out, a lot of people don't think catback exhaust systems increase power. But if you go back to the first page, and Moto IQ's website's really slow for some reason, so I'm going to try to use it here, but it's actually working really pretty fast right now. But right here, they said our test vehicle already received a 7 horsepower and 3 pound-feet of torque over stock from the Ford Performance Borla Catback and GT350 lower valence. So a lot of people say catbacks don't give you horsepower, but this gives you 7 wheel horsepower. 7 wheel doesn't sound like a lot, but that's like I don't know, 12 crank or something like that, 10 to 15 crank horsepower, and that actually is somewhat significant. So don't think if you've got a catback that it's not doing anything for you. It actually is, and that adds up. So I mean, it's not going to be a big seat of the pants difference, but nonetheless, it does make a difference. And here they go back and they just dyno test the previous on a previous date to the current, and this is how accurate their Dyna Graph is. Same car, just different days, and it just lines up pretty on top of each other, just right on top of each other. So I trust these guys' numbers, and let's dive into it. So Power Pack 1, first what they did, another interesting thing they did, they just did a drop-in filter. Look how much power they got from a drop-in filter. This is like ridiculous. They got 7 wheel peak horsepower and 7 peak torque. Let's see, make sure I'm not misquoting them. An average, they also got an average increase of 12 wheel horsepower and a maximum gain of 19 wheel horsepower. So a maximum gain means where is the biggest difference? Where's the maximum difference between these two lines at any given point? And it looks like it's right here because the factory factory car dips a little bit right here, 5400, whereas the car with the K&N filter shines, and it has a nice linear, smoother, it doesn't dip, it actually increases a little bit right here. And this is important because you know, a lot of the time, so if you're to slice this Dyna Graph in half, you see most of the gains starting at 4,000 RPMs upward, all the way up to about 6,750. So most of the time, if you're above 4,000 RPMs, you're kind of racing, I would say. Maybe not full throttle, but you're going through the gears pretty good. So you're not going to feel with the K&N, you're not going to feel much below. You're going to feel a little bit of torque, just a little bit, if you're clever on noticing power and torque. But the most significant is going to be above 4,000. That's where that air filter, and it's just an air filter, but nonetheless, you will definitely feel 19 wheel and 18 torque. So say you're at 4,000 RPMs and you gouge the throttle a little bit to pass someone, you're absolutely going to feel that filter. So really the best bang for your buck is just to do a drop-in filter. As silly as that sounds, that's going to give you a very noticeable bump in power right around the 4,000 RPM range. All right, moving right along. Then they take the stock car versus the stock car with the K&N filter, and then the next level is stock car with a PP1. PP1 is a tune and a filter, I believe. I believe that's all it is. Let me just go through here real quick. Panel filter and the new tune. Yeah. So what they learned on this is that you have a huge gain right in the mid-range, about 4,250. There is a gain of about 30 wheel horsepower and 36 pound-feet of torque. Now, up top, the very top, you're looking at 19 wheel horsepower. So it goes from 376 to 376, 396, about 20 wheel horsepower, 19 point something, about 20 wheel horsepower. Now, everyone looks to look at these numbers, and that's all nice to look at these numbers, but 99% of the time you're driving, you run the RPMs up to 35, maybe 3, and you shift. So really, you're not going to notice a lot of this stuff unless you're around 4,000. You start seeing a difference between this little red line and this big green line. The little red line is your baseline, stock Mustang with just a catback, and the green line is the Mustang GT with PP1. So you're not really starting to notice the difference until you get up. You know, you don't notice any difference almost with the horsepower until about 3,250. Torque, you notice it immediately. So Ford claimed that you're going to get 40 torque down low, and it looks like that's 40 would be from this red line all the way up to about here. So it doesn't make that claim, but it splits the difference. It makes about 15 to 20 more down low. It definitely makes 40 more right in here, roughly speaking. I think it's about 36, 37 pound-feet of torque right at the sweet spot of this 4,250. And you're going to notice that when you're passing or gouging the throttle, and overall it just makes more power. Now, for $599, that's a pretty good value. They do a value estimation of $31 per horsepower. So they divided the horsepower, the money by the horsepower, and you're getting about $31 per horsepower, which is pretty cool. I think you're going to get it's even better value for just the drop-in filter, but they're not talking about that one. So the next one is more of the same, and I'm not going to go through it as in detailed. What I'm going to do is just on the Mustang 6G forum, someone plotted these out. And I just wanted to, so that's the Power Pack 1. I just wanted to make it simple because I don't want to make this super long-winded. Now this is the Power Pack 2. This includes a throttle body. So it's the tune, possibly an intake, and then a throttle body. Yeah, so you're getting a different, you're getting a cold air intake. Let me make sure I know what I'm talking about here. Yeah, so Power Pack 2 is a tune and a throttle body for sure, and I guess they give you this open inlet cold air intake, because that's the difference. And there's the Dyno Graph for this. So basically, they're comparing the baseline Mustang GT with the catback, and they're comparing it to the Mustang Power Pack 2. Power Pack 2 is the throttle body tune and cold air intake, and this is going to give you another large gain right in the mid-range and throughout. Actually, lots of torque throughout. See, this is the difference between here is the gain. The largest gain is going to be right here. Largest gain in horsepower is going to be roughly right here. And you're gaining some, the factory tune falls off. It probably goes about down here. And this is with the tune. Now, great, it raises the red line 7250. How many times are you at 7250? And then for how long are you at 7250? If you're racing, you're there for about 1 second, then you shift, the RPMs go back down to here. Then you're up here for 1 second, then you shift, RPMs are back down here. The most of the time you're going to be spinning the rev range down here. When you're passing, you're going to be in this, and this is where you're going to feel the biggest difference is mid-range, partial throttle. It's going to feel a lot stronger. And then on this one, they compare the PP1 to the PP2. So I don't consider the PP2 the best value. They valued it at $37 per horsepower. So it's more expensive than the PP1 was $31 per horsepower. The PP2 is about $969. So for the money, probably the drop-in filter is the best deal. Second best deal would be the PP1. Another thing to consider is as you make more horsepower, it's harder to make more horsepower. So it is going to get more expensive. It's hard to explain that in words, but basically, it's going to cost more expensive to take a Coyote motor from 450 horsepower to 500 horsepower than it would be to take it from 400 horsepower to 450 horsepower. So as the power increases, it gets more technical to increase the power because you're trying to increase the efficiency, and each little horsepower gets way, way harder to make, if that makes any sense. So comparing the PP1 to the PP2, you're getting a few more horsepower up top, about, 6 horsepower up top, peak, and then about 7 peak torque. I think they have it right down here. Yeah, 6.9 wheel peak, 6.7 peak torque. Not a lot difference. It does give you a few more foot-pounds of torque down low, 3 to 4. I don't know if that's worth it to you guys. To me, that's not worth the extra $500. Another way to look at it is it's twice as expensive as the PP1 package. The PP1 package is like $599. This one is $969. It's not quite twice as expensive, but it's almost twice as expensive. And your gains are minimal in my estimation. So still a good deal, because to get 7 more foot-pounds of torque and horsepower is harder as the power increases, if that makes any sense. So you're getting closer to that 415 wheel horsepower that the 2018 Mustang made in the previous video that I did. And I'll put a link to that in the description. And then they're going to change the intake manifold out for the PP3, the Power Package 3, and they kind of compare it, and they do a really good job doing that. They show the larger runners, the way everything's shaped differently. We're going to slap that dude on, and we're going to dyno it. And the interesting thing with this is that, so this is baseline versus PP3. The baseline car makes a little bit more torque, between 3250 and 4, and then right around 4,000 RPMs, the PP3 intake manifold starts taking off. And if you go from stock to PP3, you'll notice a big difference around 5,500. It'll just start screaming and it'll pull all the way to 75, whereas the stock motor, stock Coyote's done at about 65 or 6. You're not noticing a lot of difference right here. So if you're going to race, you would shift the Coyote, stock Coyote, around 6750. So when the RPMs drop back down, you're in the next gear, still around peak horsepower, somewhere around there. Now if you're racing with the PP3 package, you can run this thing all the way up. It doesn't drop. It drops a little bit actually right here, 7250. And if you overrun the engine a little bit, if you spin the engine up past peak horsepower and you shift, you're still going to be way in this peak power range. So, but the question is, and you're driving, how frequently are you at 7,000 RPMs to notice the difference between stock and PP3? Okay, so it's making as much power as the 2018 Mustang GT right here with the PP3 package. It's actually making more because the stock car made 370 wheel and now it's making 414 wheel. That's an increase of 45 wheel horsepower. That's a ton. Made 45 wheel horsepower over stock. So the reason I say 370, not 376, is because this is with the catback installed. Prior to the catback, it made 370. So it went from 370 wheel stock, if you take a bone stock Mustang GT, to 414. That's a huge increase in power. The question is, how did it lose peak torque? And it's because of the intake manifold. So let's compare the PP3 with the PP1. PP3 is in the green, and if we look at the green line is where this intake manifold's coming on and it's working. It starts at about 5,700 RPMs, and really, unless you're racing, I would go with the PP1 package. If you're a daily driver, if you're not taking it to the track, the road track or the drag strip, or you're not street racing or any of that stuff. So what you're going to notice is the PP1 has a ton more torque right in this mid-range, and that's what you're going to be driving in. From 2,000 RPMs all the way up to about 5,700 RPMs, the PP1 package makes more torque. It's like significantly more torque. Look at the gap here. This PP3 package is dropping down. I mean, the PP1 package is making 40 more torque here. It's really crazy. So, but above 6,500 RPMs, PP3 package is just still up here making tons of power. So, really just depends on how much money you want to spend and if you're going to be driving the car on the racetrack, or how much time. Do you value having those extra horsepower up top more than you do around having it down low? Now, as me, I drive my car every day, and I don't even get to redline the car. There's no space for me to do it around here in this high traffic area of Los Angeles. So I don't get to run the car up, and it's got a lot of exhaust. I mean, it's so crazy loud, and at 7,000 RPMs, I'm going over the speed limit, and there's always traffic, so I don't get to run my car up that high. So I value having gobs of torque down low. So I would much rather have the PP1, save the money, and have 40, 30 more pound-feet of torque than having this extra just up here for 1 second. I mean, this is through the whole rev range, all the way to 5,000, 6,000 RPMs. You've got a significant amount more torque. So that's what I'm after. But if you want to make your 2015 as powerful, actually a little bit more powerful than a 2018, then just get the PP3. And I believe the price is down here. Notice this is all also on 91 octane fuel, which is pretty awesome. And then here they're comparing the PP3 to the PP2. So let's go over this one real quick. PP2 is killing it in torque. PP2 is the blue line. And if you look, the torque is just, even down here at 2250, that's like taking off at a red light, right? You're getting 10 or so more torque. And just throughout the whole rev range, you're getting more torque. You're getting more horsepower, actually, through the whole rev range. Look at that. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? So you're just getting a lot more. Now, peak power stops right here, about 65. whereas the PP3, not GT3, the PP3 makes more peak power. And for me, I'm just like, who cares about this? If I'm doing road racing, I would care about that. If I'm doing drag racing, I would care about that. But I'm driving around traffic most of the time, and that's what I care about. This looks a lot more appealing to me, all this extra power below 5,000. So something to consider. I would check out Moto IQ if you're into this technical analysis of, basically all the technicals of, here's a good graph, baseline versus PP1 versus PP2 versus PP3. I think another guy took this and he blew it up on the Mustang 6G board. Yeah. So if you were to just say who has more peak torque at 3,000 RPMs, it's the blue line. That's the PP2. Who has more torque at 3,500? Blue line, PP2. Who has more torque at 4,000? Blue line, PP2. Who has more torque at 45? Blue line, PP2. 5,000? PP2. Okay. Who has more horsepower at 4,000? PP2. 5,000? PP2. More horsepower at 55, PP2. 6,000, it's the same as the PP3 and PP2. They're tied. 65, the PP2 is still making more horsepower. It's not until 7,000 RPM at which the PP3 makes a significant amount more power. Now, if you spend your time driving at 67, or if it matters to you most to have more peak horsepower, which would be road racing, drag racing, etc., then this is important to you. But if you want to feel more down low, then consider this who has peak torque, throughout the whole rev range below 5,000, 6,000 RPMs. So in summary, I would probably go with a drop-in filter first and enjoy that. Notice the difference. Do a catback, and then you can do the Ford Racing PP1. Then you can later upgrade to the PP2 if you want to. But hopefully these numbers allow you to see how this probably the PP3 makes about 5 more wheel horsepower than the 2018 Mustang GT. And you know what? Let's look at the 2018 Dyno. Because I want to compare the torque numbers. This is how you search a message board if you don't know. Let's see if we can find the pictures here. I posted it here. I want to see what their torque graph looks like and try to compare the two. Let's see if we can find a picture of the torque graph and we're going to compare the two. All right, well, at least they make 397 at 4,500. 397 at 4,500. 397 at 4,500. So it's not making, the torque is way lower on the current generation Coyote. So that's something to consider. And I believe it's because they bumped the compression ratio to 12:1 for the 2018. So if you're after torque, the 2018 motor is going to be the one to go with regardless. Even if you do a PP3 package, you lose torque. The second best would be a PP2 package, and you're still about 20 foot-pounds of torque lower than the current, the 2018 engine. Now, the next move you could do is headers if you wanted to make your non-18, so 2015 to 2017 Mustang GT. I would like to compare with headers, and other than that, you're starting to look at things like superchargers, which are anywhere from about $6,000 to about $10,000, and that's a whole different playing field. You're going to look at 600 wheel horsepower and 500 wheel torque instead of this, but that's a lot higher investment. Anyways, that was the latest, and go to Moto IQ if you want to read the details. Check out Mustang 6G to check out these graphs, and just before you purchase anything, ask yourself what is the typical driving characteristics and style, and that should help you decide on if it's more important for you to have peak horsepower or more mid-range and low-end torque, and how your car would fare against a 2018 Mustang, and if it's a better investment for you to put your money into trading up and get the new tech and all the features that 2018 Mustang has, and the more torque and more horsepower and the 10-speed auto, if that's worth it to you or not, or if you're better off just spending $50 on a drop-in K&N filter or $599 on the PP1 package. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the subscriptions, and I'll keep it coming with more Mustang news. Thanks.